Welcome to the Eve Ellenbogen Show. My name is Eve Ellenbogen, and this is my show. I don't even know what we're doing. I have no idea. I'm on the floor. This is the passenger side of my bed. This is the spare side. My bed is here. I have my own nightstand. This is like for the lover. You know, I heard someone, you know, in some feng shui person. I cut my own bangs yesterday. I really did the most haphazard job on it. I heard some feng shui person talk about how if you want to end up with somebody like in your bed, you have to like create a space for them that's inviting. By the way, if you're listening only and you don't understand what I'm referencing, I'm also recording this with a video, which I'll put up on YouTube. So if you want to look at me, which who can blame you? It's on YouTube. I'm in such a bad mood. Like just the whole day. I was thinking about it today. I was like, I guess I'm getting my period. I mean, I am. And I always go like, I'm getting my period. Like I'm getting my period. But I also think that like if I were to write a memoir about my life, it would be called I'm Getting My Period. I have to fix there we go. I don't know what to include in the visual. If I go back just a little bit, as I just did, it's like an angle. It shows enough of my boob that it makes my boobs look insanely, when it cuts off in a certain, like if it cuts off in a certain place, you look really fat. If it cuts off in a certain place there, my boobs look stupid. They look so huge. It's not, anyway. I really am going to have to come up with a better background, but this is where we're at today. I'm in such a bad mood. I flew back to Austin, where I live, where I'm a prisoner. I'm not a prisoner, but I live here, and I just don't like Austin, Texas. I moved here for stand-up, and that has been good for me, but I just do not like this place. I think it's full of boredom, and, I don't mind weirdos. I like weirdos, older Austin people, great. But I think that all the things that made this place cool are gone. I've heard like, yeah, they used to have this great place. It's gone now. And there was also this, yeah, it's over. And we used to, but it's just, and it's like everything is like, oh, okay, so it was cool. And then everybody found out. And I don't blame anyone. I'm also here. I got to get more comfortable. This is so uncomfortable. I'm sitting on my floor, and I got my computer next to me. And now empty glass of part kombucha, part watermelon juice. Things are going well. Oh, yeah. Okay. I got to re-angle. Well, that's all right. Well, this is quite intimate. I feel like you're in bed with me now. This is my bed. I don't mind weird people. I think what I mind is, I like weird people. What I don't like is that the stuff that I've heard made Austin cool, the interesting, whatever, bars, restaurants, people, this, that, it's all gone. And what's left is just really boring people. I didn't come here because of the city. I didn't come here because I wanted to find out what's going on in Austin. I came for the comedy scene part of that. Joe Rogan opened his comedy club here, the Mothership, and that, there were other places here before that, but then that kind of spurred more growth for comedy. I moved here at the same time, like about a month after one of my friends. My friend James McCann, who I knew from when I lived in Australia, was doing stand-up there before COVID. And being here, we became good friends, me and his wife and his family. And then Ruby Setnick moved here, and she and I did not like each other to begin with. And then love each other now and became very, very good friends. And then they both left. Their careers have gone great. They have left me in this armpit of a city with just not much happening. And I don't know. I lived in Korea in my 20s in South Korea. I lived in Seoul. I always say it on stage. People go, "Oh, you lived in Korea, North or South?" And I'm like, "Shut the fuck, go kill yourself." That's what I say on stage. But I don't mean it. I don't want anyone to kill themselves unless they say things like that. But anyway, I lived in South Korea, and I was living in Seoul, and I had lived in this small town called Jeonju, which was really beautiful and idyllic, and it was like, mountains and rivers and just stunning. Like, I can't explain how beautiful that first year was in Korea. But then I left, and there's a point to this, by the way. And I moved I was in Portland, Oregon for a year. I wanted to come back to Korea so that I could really disappoint my father, which worked very well at the time. I remember telling him I was going back to Korea. He goes, "Ugh, I thought you were done with that." And when you're in your early 20s, it's like, Deb, I can't believe you don't believe in me. And, but now whatever. He believes in me, blah, blah, blah. But, like I'm a ghost. My father believes in me. I believe she's real, or not a god. Is that what? Anyway, I went back to Korea. I was living in Seoul. I wanted to live in the big smoke. I wanted to live in the big city. And I didn't really know anybody in Seoul. I had known a couple people, but they'd left. And I ended up working at this really shitty school. And my coworkers were just not people that I was close to. And my apartment was crap. My school was their apartment. And like the pipes were built outside of the building. So in the winter, it just solid froze. And also I had no water at all. But also the floor heating under the floor. So they have there in Korea, they have heating under the floor with water pipes. And would you believe it? When the pipes froze, the heating also stopped working. And so I was pretty miserable. I tried, I got through it. I had a lot of debt. I was trying to pay it off. But when it got to the summer, I'd been there, I don't know, 8 months, 10 months. And my very good friend who I love, and she's like a living fairy, my friend Laura, she's a little Scottish angel, and she always speaks like this. She's like a little, like she's whispering because she doesn't want to wake the spirits, And she came to stay with me and work at my school temporarily for the summer because they have extra classes in Korea, because in the US, when kids are playing and having fun in Korea and in Asia in general, they are studying English double time so that they can grow up and kill themselves, because that's what it is to be a child in Asia. But, we also had some fun. So she came and worked and lived with me in my tiny little apartment. It was like a little loft, and they're called one rooms in Korea. I don't know why we don't have them here. It's like little office buildings, and you walk in and you're kind of like in a small kitchen with like a low ceiling, and then you have a big living room, and then there's like little steps up to the loft above your kitchen. And the kitchen's like, one burner. I had a little washing machine under my sink, and the bathrooms are small. I used to shower next to my toilet. There's no curtain. You just, the floor is wet, and you have to wear special shoes in the shower, and you take off your shoes when you come in, whatever. Anyway, she was living with me. I was really unhappy. And at that point, I gotten really bitter about Korea and Korean people. And when you live in another country, I think you're allowed to be temporarily racist, like just a little, like not like you shouldn't like write like manifestos or anything, but like to just be like, these fucking, why do they do this? You have to be able to do that. Otherwise you can't live there, because that's what culture shock is. Even if it's not shock, it's just like, why? I mean, there's a million whys for Korea. Like, but whatever. I loved it. But there are so many whys. Why is it like this? There's a million whys for this country as well. But I digress. The point is, I was going off on a tangent. I'd become really unhappy. And Laura, my little fairy friend, we're sitting on the roof of my apartment building. And I was like, they cheat you. They're dishonest. They're always, the culture promotes this and that. And they're always out to get you. And they're always looking out for themselves. And they don't like foreigners. And she kept like really sweetly volunteering. Like, well, maybe it's like, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, but maybe that's just that one person, or like, I don't know, I think that there's good in everyone. And she was being so positive, and it was so annoying, even though she was completely right. But I was just like enraged. And so finally I was like, this is you live in a fantasy. You just want to see the best in people. You want people to be good because you're good, but you don't see reality. And she got really quiet. And I was such a bitch. I can't believe I was so mean to Laura. And then she said, well, maybe you're right, but I just think maybe you could be happy here. And that was it. We didn't really talk much about it, but it stayed with me. And I ended up deciding to quit that job after I finished the summer camp. And I was going to Bali. So I went to Bali. I got so sunburned on the first day that I was so sick the whole trip. But when I left, that's just a little side note, but when I left Korea, I turned in my alien registration card, which is like, it's kind of like canceling your work visa. God, this is so the opposite of how the U.S. is. In the U.S., it's like, you just would never, like, ever forfeit your work rights. But I was like, I'm not going to work legally. If you worked illegally, you could make a lot more money, because you were working for a school that didn't have the money to pay a full-time English teacher, but they would pay you a higher rate because they weren't going to pay you, like, if you have a full-time job, it might average out, sorry, my bangs are in my face. If you had a full-time job, it might average out to like $20 an hour, but which is 20,000 won an hour, but if you had a part-time job, they pay you like 40 or 50,000 won an hour, which is like $40 or $50 an hour, meaning you could work half or 1/3 of the time and make the same money. No, half or 2/3. Anyway, whatever. So I told my school, I was like, when I come back in, I'm canceling my visa. And if you want me to work, you got to pay me more money. And it was great because my boss still really needed my help, and she was a nightmare. She was a terrible person and a liar, and of course she was like incredibly religious on paper. And they kept paying me, and I moved to a different part of town and got other jobs and quit working for them. And my whole life changed, and my whole social circle changed, and I ended up taking yoga, and I worked, very few hours, and it was like the beginning of such a beautiful time in my life. All of that is to say, I think about that with Austin, and I go, is it me? Like, maybe I could like it here. Maybe I could. And I'm like, no. Like, sure, it's me. I don't like it. Could I be happy here? I guess if I gave up on ever wanting to see like lush green again, if I just wanted to like see brown, I just want to go out for a walk and I just want to see dirt, just everywhere, just dirt. Maybe I'll see some grass, but try not to put in place too many really beautiful, striking parks, because, that might trigger me. I might feel relaxed and, feel too peaceful and excited. Like, I went to Nashville, Tennessee this week, and I just looked at my phone and was like, parks near me. And I got all these beautiful parks. And I went to one, and there was parking, and it was like not packed. And I parked the car, and there were all these paved trails up a mountain, and it was beautiful and green, and it was like kind of drizzling. And it was like, I was like, like, this is what I really need, is just the world. I need to be in the world. I don't want to be in Texas. Ugh. I really wanted Texas to be like so much cooler than I find it to be. I like Houston a little bit because I feel like Houston has that kind of like abandoned city feeling, because it's so big that there's like all of these like warehouses that can be really cool cafes. There's just like random shit everywhere, because it just is like none of it seems cohesive. You can have the zoning stuff is weird there. So like, there's a comedy club that's just like in a neighborhood, and it's like that club is a house, but it's like not a house, it's a club. Anyway, so there's some cool stuff, but I don't think Austin is like that. And the point is, I guess I have to stop. It's probably a personality defect. I probably could just say, I don't want to be somewhere and then change it. Instead, I'm like, I'll tell you exactly why this is the worst thing in the world. And then I like shit on it like relentlessly so that I force myself to hate it so that I can leave. That's kind of my process. It's like a breakup where the relationship is just ending. But instead of just being like, there's something wrong here. Like, what if I destroy everything we ever had? and then I can get maybe a year away from this, and I can look back and I can journal about it and go, oh, I was just deeply unhappy and the relationship was fine. But it's time for me to leave. So I'm probably going to leave Austin when this lease is up in August. And I most likely will move to Nashville, Tennessee, as long as that makes sense at the time. I really like the club Zanies. There's one in Nashville, one in Chicago. Or I guess they have a couple locations in each place, but it's all the same people. And I like them and they like me. And I really, someone said to me, go where you're wanted. I was like, yeah, I feel more wanted. That Austin doesn't feel, it feels it's a place of a lot of, it's not ambivalence, it's apathy towards me anyway. You know how I got the word apathy? I was trying to remember. I'm like, what is that word again? And then I remembered that I know it's like a common word, but I just spaced on it. But I associate that with Camus. I'm very literate. He wrote the book The Stranger, which is about, a man who ends up killing another man in Algeria, and then he gets hanged, I think, in the end, or killed. I can't remember, but he goes to jail and then dies, and I guess he never really appreciated his life. I can't remember it very well, but I remember there's a very famous Australian comedian. I guess he's like the most famous Australian comedian, named Carl Barron. And we were friends for a while when I was pre-comedy. I was 23. I was backpacking in Europe a little bit. Like I was living in Ireland at that point, and I was working at a comedy festival that I think is still in existence called the Cat Laughs. And I was just working at the box office, and I really wanted to like sleep with a comic. Then of course I realized later I didn't want to sleep with a comic. I just wanted to like become a comic. and now I don't have to sleep with them. I can just be one, which is so much better. Nobody really wants to sleep with a comic. They just want to do stand up. If you want to sleep with a comic, you're wrong. You just want to be a comedian. No, and I'm saying you don't want to sleep with a comic because as far as, let's say, male comics go, nobody wants that, Nobody's like, ooh. I mean, there are exceptions, but for the most part, just trust me when I tell you, I've done it a couple times, a few thousand. No, a little bit. It's not worth it. Anyway, yeah, if you want to sleep with a comedian, you probably just want to go to an open mic and get up there. Like that's just, and it's better for everyone if you do that. But I hung out with, I guess Carl Barron was newly unbelievably famous in Australia. He's still really famous, but he's now very kind of hidden from public life. I guess he just tours sometimes when he feels like it. I guess that was almost 20 years ago. That was early 2007. But he and I hung out and we became friends, and he's for sure at least 10 years older than me, maybe more. And we'd both read Camus, and we, I don't know. I'm like talking about Camus. I'm like, yeah, oh my God, I love The Stranger. I was 23. I just loved him. I didn't know who he was really, but he was just a very sweet, shy, down to earth person, where everybody else at the festival was like, oh my God. You had a lot of like comics who were really full of themselves. I mean, there was one, I'm like, do I mention him? Yeah. Andrew Maxwell, who's like newly famous in Ireland. And I was hanging out with him and his wife, baby mama. I don't know if they're together, But I think they had a kid together, and we're sitting at this table, and we were talking, and these girls came up to, and he was on TV, and these girls came up to us, and one of them was like, "Oh my God, can you say hi to my friend on the phone?" And it was like a Nokia or like a flip phone or whatever. And he was like, "Sure." And like it was like, "Hello, Andrew Maxwell," whatever. And they walked away, and he said to me, he goes, "I'm like really famous here." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he goes, "No, I'm like really famous." I remember that. It's funny because even as I was telling you that, I was checking in with myself. I'm like, this is accurate, right? I'm not exaggerating. I'm like, no, that's what happened. But anyway, I met Carl Barron amidst that sea of whatever egos, and he was so much fun, and we were like texting a little bit. And then before he left Ireland, I was like, "Hey, can we be friends?" And we exchanged emails, and we used to keep in touch regularly. He actually stopped responding to me. Like, we spoke for years when I was living in Korea, whatever. Yeah, I was like, that was 2007. The last time we spoke was 2013. And I remember because that's when I started doing stand-up. And we'd been messaging for years, and I was like, always lost, writing these like deep, sad messages or whatever. And he would be like, "Eve, I feel your pain." He referenced Camus. That was why I thought of the word apathy, because he was talking about how the point of the stranger is that the universe has complete apathy towards us. Like, you have your dreams, you have your whatever, and the universe just doesn't care, right? It's like it's not moved by anything in you, which I don't actually agree with, but that was what he said to me. And he wasn't being super depressing. He was basically saying, like, so you can kind of do whatever you want, But then in 2013, finally, I was like, oh, I want to do stand-up. I want to be a comedian. I started doing open mics and doing stand-up in Seoul. And I told him, and I never heard from him again. I was like, hey, yeah, I realized like what I want is to do stand-up, and I tried this and that, and I'm probably moving to Australia. Never a response. He always used to email me and be like, he'd always change his email address like every few months, and he would email me, "Oh, here's my new one," so I could keep in touch with them. No, I was fully ghosted by Carl Barron, and I don't think that email, I think I tried it again and it didn't work anymore. But anyway, apathy. That's how I feel about Austin towards me. That's how Carl Barron feels about the universe towards our dreams. I was going to talk about Austin and the comedy club scene, but who cares? I mean, someone probably cares, but I don't care. And I don't care because I am getting out. It's kind of become clear to me in the last few days. I'm like, I think I just want to go somewhere else. Nashville seems practical because it's so close to so many things. But I'll tell you, I really want to go to New Orleans. But I've never been there. But I don't think I'd want to live there. But I want to visit. Maybe they don't have a lot of stand-up there. I don't think I could move there. I put my arm on the bed and I just saw my arm fat jiggle. I have not been to the gym since October. I was getting really into the gym. I was feeling great. And then I stopped going and then just gained 15 pounds. Not because I stopped going, but just because I went through my friend, I was touring with James, and then both he and Ruby, plus of course James's wife and kids, all left. And I have been so alone. I am on the floor of my room speaking into a microphone. I am so alone. I think if I weren't this lonely, there's no way I would be doing this. But that's good, right? I think you maybe have to be lonely sometimes because, or at least for me, that's actually why I love traveling, is I love being alone because I get sad, like really sad. I don't usually gain a ton of weight, But I guess that's also because when I travel, I'm usually like active and like moving around instead of just being at home and just being like, well, I guess I'm just still alone today. And then I'll go to work or I'll go to a show and then I'll come home and I'll just still be alone, and sometimes I'll be alone with ice cream. And sometimes I think that I don't even know that I'm eating a crazy amount. Maybe I just my body is stressed. I'm stressed. And so my body's like, well, you better hold on. It feels like you might die out here. And so then it hoards weight, ensuring that, I was going to say ensuring that men won't hit on me and I really will be alone. But the truth is, I've noticed now that I'm almost 42, I can't believe it. It doesn't really matter what weight I am. Guys hit on me. I'm not even saying that to be like generous to myself. I'm just saying like men hit on women unless you're like egregiously like, like you need like a special kind of car set up for how big you are. There's men who are like, yeah, this is great. This is for me. Although last night I did say I was feeling really fat because I was wearing this one pair of jeans I don't even like, but they fit. And all of my laundry is dirty because I was away in Nashville and I didn't do laundry before I went. I have so many clothes I just don't have a lot to wear at the moment. And so I wore this pair of jeans that I feel is it wasn't unflattering when I was 15 pounds lighter, but now it's not very flattering. They're not very flattering. So I wore these pair of jeans and I said in front of 2 male comics, I was like, God, I just feel like, I gained like 15 pounds. I can't stop talking about it. I'm really annoying about it. And it's like, whatever. I don't need people to go, no, you look fine. I don't need that. But it's just like, I feel like I just have to say it. I don't want to be like afraid that people are noticing or something. It's women are insane. I'm insane. But this guy goes, yeah, that's actually one of my big fears about getting married. I was like, what? He's like, well, that my wife would gain weight. And I was like, wow. And then he goes, no, because when you're like in a relationship, like your girlfriend is like, she's like a projection of yourself, like an extension of you. Like when I bring her out with my friends are like, oh, she's really hot. And like, I know they want to like fuck her. That makes me feel good. And I was like, wow. Like, it's just when someone is speaking and like, they don't realize that everything that they're saying, like each thing, it's just like, everything is like, it's like a falling down the steps, They'll say something and then they'll try to clarify it. And it's like, oh no, you're further down. Oh no, you're down. Like, oh, stop. Like, it's just like, and I mean, not objectively. Objectively, a lot of people would just agree with him. Be like, yeah, well, like as he was explaining, he was like, well, I don't want her to like become a slob or something. It's like, why would she become a slob? And he was like, well, if she just gains weight or what? And I was like, you mean like if she has a baby? And he was like, well, she's got to take care of herself. And I was like, I mean, my thing I said to him, because he's a little bit younger I think he's like 10 years younger than me, but I was like, I get what you're saying. You want to be attracted to somebody, but also it's like, life is life. And like, nothing will go the way you think it will go. You could lose a limb, like, or a ball. She could have an accident, or who knows what can happen. And like, that's not the thing that actually ends up mattering in your relationship. Of course, some relationships, yeah, or it's like a symptom of something else. Somebody gains a ton of weight because they're depressed or whatever. Maybe they're gay, but I think what was amazing to me was realizing like, oh, you have like no depth of character, like at all. Like, I get that you're saying like you want to have attraction towards someone, but when it's like, because I was like, you said that's your biggest fear. I think that is really his biggest fear, is committing to a woman who could one day not be someone that everyone wants to fuck. And it's like, well, because I was like, oh, it's not going to last, that relationship. And I didn't even get into like, she's going to age and people will, see her as long as she's allowed out of the house. I don't know if you want to let her out, the way that you're describing this. But it was funny because he was like, I feel like you think that I'm such a bad boyfriend. I'm like, I didn't say that. I'm like, I don't think you're a bad boyfriend. I think you're a bad person, like, I think you're not even a bad person. You're just like dumb and, you'll probably never have, I mean, God, I hope he never listens to this because he is a comic, but it's kind of like if this is what you're really prioritizing, like he's like 31, I think. Is that how old he was? I think so. I think he was in his 30s. I couldn't believe it. But it's like, you're already so boring if that's what your number one thing is. And also, I can't really imagine you're ever going to have anything that interesting to say if you're just like, oh, I don't want my woman to get fat. It's like, what a hot take. I've never heard this guy before. This is, pull up a chair. He's really on a roll. It's like, yeah, you're just boring. I don't even know why you're doing stand-up. And he's attractive and he works out, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. I'm like, I guess two of my good friends right now, one of them is married, one of them is not, but two of my really good female friends have cancer, like really bad cancer. And like, I don't, I know that because of it, both of them, their bodies have changed. And it's like, no one is like, God, she was so pretty before cancer. No, nobody's like, I don't know. She just used to have something kind of hot about it. It's like, they have cancer. They're like, God, you appreciate your body so much. You're like, hang in there. I mean, and the one who's married, like, and I know her husband, I just can't imagine that that's at all an issue. I think that maybe I would assume that going through all that stuff makes you not feel very horny. God, one of my other friends, who's a good friend, he was saying he always envisioned that he's like a good enough boyfriend. Like he's a good boyfriend. So he kind of envisioned like, he'd probably be like, you weren't supposed to say that on your podcast, but sorry. He always envisioned that if his partner, like his wife or girlfriend, got cancer, he would be such a good boyfriend that no matter what, if she's going through chemo or surgery or whatever, he would still like fuck the shit out of her so that she would feel really beautiful. And I was like, I don't really think that my friends with cancer always want to have sex. Like I know at least one of them, I don't think she's feeling like hot right now. Actually, both of them, I don't think that they're like really feeling it, with all the fucking side effects of chemo and all this stuff like that, your hair falling out, getting weird bloating. Like actually, I don't think they'd want to fuck you. This like fantasy wife, girlfriend that you're like giving the dick to despite her looking ugly. And he was like, what? Really? God, that never even occurred to me. I guess he was like really sad. He's like, I guess I have to change my fantasy about what kind of partner I would be if my wife or girlfriend got cancer. And I'm like, God, how are men allowed to vote sometimes? Not all men. There's so many smart men, but like, and there's so many dumb women. But sometimes you're like, how do people in general navigate the world and not like pick up on things? I have a coworker who I love, but he was so serious, like not fucking with me when he was asking me about food in New York. And he goes, what about Philly cheesesteaks? Are those from New York? And I was like, no, they're from Philly. And he was like, is that in New York? And I was like, no, that's Philly, as in Philadelphia. He's like, so that's different. And I'm like, that's crazy. He's a 50-something-year-old man. I'm like, that's wild that you don't know that Philadelphia and New York City are so different. But, he votes, owns property. All right. Now that I'm ranting about dumb people, I think it's time to end this episode. I also have to, oh my God, I have to get ready. I have a show. Listen, you've been great. Thanks for listening. Come back again. Feel free to comment. Please comment and tell me, I don't know, give me suggestions. Not, kindly, but you know what? I don't really care. Whatever. I mean, you should be kind, but if you want to be a cunt, whatever helps the algorithm. All right. Have a blessed day. No, have a good day. Bye.